Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at a very interesting rifle. Now, probably about a year or so ago, we looked at the Spear Lt in 5.56mm. And I was very, very pleased with that. In fact, I'm going to say the same thing now that I said back then. If you give me this rifle chambered in 6.8 SPC, I'll show you what the next generation service weapon should have been. The 6.8 SPC in this platform would have basically given us additional capabilities without taking anything away of what the 5.56mm had to offer, rather than giving up everything it has just for power. This rifle would be an ideal host for a 6.8 SPC that would have made the excellent choice for the next generation service weapon. But this particular rifle we have here is the same Spear Lt, but chambered at 7.62x39. The biggest pink elephant in the room when it comes to 7.62x39 is to take AR magazines, as the AR magazines have never been reliable. And that was what cost Colt to stop manufacturing their Sporter Target back in the early 90s, because they worked fine with the 5-shot magazines, but when everybody tried getting the aftermarket 3-round magazines, the guns just wouldn't work, and Colt couldn't guarantee their weapon work when they couldn't control the magazine, so they sort of gave up on it. And over the years, the same thing happened. People would come out with AR-15s and 7.62x39. They'd put some of these other magazines in them, and they just wouldn't work. People gave up on them. I was one of them. Well, it wasn't until a few years ago when I started getting a little bit interested in them again, when I was looking at Black Rifle Arms with their 7.62x39 AR. And I was looking at some magazines, and that's when I learned some very interesting information on these magazines, which I'm going to be sharing with you now because it's directly relevant to this rifle right here. Now, according to Chris Royce, who was one of the main designers of the Sig Spear, the Sig MCX, MPX, as well as the 5.16, 7.16, when he was put to work on the MCX, it was originally chambered in 300 blackout for a military contract. So the original MCX was just that; it was a 300 blackout. Then the requirement came for a 7.62x39. The 5.56, believe it or not, came in third for as far as the requirements and the way the gun was designed. And of course, when Chris Royce looked at it and Sig looked at it, they could make the greatest rifle in the world, but if they couldn't get a magazine that worked, the gun wasn't going to work. So to address first the issue of the magazine, Chris Royce from Sig was sent down to Florida to work with Adele over at C-Prox Defense Durmag. They basically took a look at the 7.62x39 magazine, and they went to work to design what we know now as the Durmag. What we have here is the 28-round Durmag. There's also a 30-round Durmag. People tend to like these 28-rounders because they fit in your plate carriers with regular AR-15, M16 type magazine pouches, where the 30s tend not to because of the curvature. Some people tend to like the 28s a little bit better. To me, 6-to-1. I'm not carrying them around in a shell plate, I'm not carrying my ammunition around in a shell carrier, so I'm not really too worried about it. But so he went to work, and they went to work and designed the magazine that you see right here. This is the one. This is the Durmag at 7.62x39, the 28 and the 30-round magazine that is now making this rifle military grade. You now have an AR type rifle that will take 7.62x39, that will have a magazine that will make it military grade. Now, the nice thing was when Sig did this with C-Prox Defense, it wasn't proprietary. It wasn't, okay, this is only going to be used on our MCX program. This was one that was done with in cooperation with Sig and C-Prox. They designed the magazine. Sig got the magazines to work with their MCX, and then C-Prox Defense was able to sell those. So that was one of the major hurdles. They already had a rifle that worked. Now, we have a video of this on the MCX Spear Lt. Previously, I definitely recommend you go take a look at that to get some more detailed information on the origins of that rifle, where it came from. But I'll give you a sort of an overlook at this one here. So this one here was shot suppressed and unsuppressed. The suppressor we have on here is the Sig SLX sound suppressor. And this one works 7.62. So we had this one for the 7.62x39. As the Spear Lt comes, it comes directly with the mounting device for the Sig can. So that worked out quite well. You just had to drop the can on it. The barrel. This thing here, the ammunition that I had to shoot with it was Wolf. It was Wolf 124 grain full metal jacket. I don't know if it was bimetal or not. I didn't take a magnet to it. That ammunition is not known to be what you would call precision grade. Well, this particular ammunition we shot, I basically did some testing on it. I had my lab radar out there, and we got a muzzle velocity of 2,446 feet per second, standard deviation of 20.6. The ammunition that we're testing here is Wolf 123 grain full metal jacket. This is out of the Spear Lt and 7.62x39. We're going to try 5 rounds just to see what we get with this Russian-made ammunition. Okay, we have an average of 2,446 feet per second out of a 16-inch barrel. Standard deviation of 20.6, which is really not that bad, considering this is, the lower quality steel Wolf ammunition. So that wasn't bad at all. Well, target was at 50 yards, 1.13 inches. I have never gotten a group with any AK or anything of the sort at 1.13 inches. That just does not happen. And then when these things are taken out further, they do the exact same thing. This could be very much a sub-MOA gun with the proper ammunition. So doing some research, there were some super secret things that were done to this barrel that made this barrel shoot more accurate than any other 7.62x39 barrel is out there. Unfortunately, the information is proprietary, so I can't get into it, but I can tell you that there were some major modifications designed to the design of this barrel, which makes it shoot much better than any other 7.62x39 that's out there. This is basically a mid-weight type barrel on it. Let's give you some of the statistics on it. The barrel is 16 inches. It's nitride treated. This is one of the few military rifles that's out there today that's sold that it's nitride treated. So you might want to consider that somewhat groundbreaking for whatever it's worth. Now, the upper receiver is basically monolithic. You have a M-lock handguard on here. Actually, we have a longer handguard on here. The barrel material, all Sig will tell you, is it's carbon steel. It's 4 lands and grooves, right-hand twist. I don't really have any other GRC information on this one. Sig is a little bit more tight-lipped about it. You get a 5/8 by 24 inch thread pitch on here, so you can put whatever muzzle device you want on here. But again, since I had the Sig SLX suppressor, it dropped right on here. Now the trigger we have on here is a Sig trigger. It's a 2-stage trigger, very, very nice trigger. It probably breaks around a pound and a half, but it being 2-stage. Grip type, you have a proprietary Sig polymer. Now the stock you have on here is side folding, push in, and it goes over. This is a much improvement over the original MCX and Virtus. Basically, you had to lift up and pull out. It was very difficult to actually manipulate. Overall length was 34.5 inches. And overall width, 2.9 inches. Height was 7.5 inches. Now looking up front, you're going to see we have an adjustable gas system. We have 2 positions. Now your first position is the same one you leave it on for suppressed and unsuppressed. The other position is is for an adverse condition. So unless the gun was heavily filthy or it was struggling to operate, there's no need for you to even put it into the second position, but it is. Again, we have M-lock. Top is Millsider 1913 rail going all the way back. The optic we have on here is Romeo 4T Pro. This was the optic they provided with it. Again, I was going to put on I had a Elcan Spectre I was going to put on here, but this one actually here worked out quite well for the distances we were shooting. The 100-yard steel and the 50-yard bullseye target. Charging handle is ambi on both sides. Again, this is a proprietary charging handle to the MCX. This is not MCX Virtus and the Spear Lt. It's not compatible with the AR-15. You have ambidextrous features. So you have an ambidextrous bolt release on the right-hand side, which works quite well. So again, bolt release, and it's mirrored on both the right and left-hand side. The ping-pong paddle on the left-hand side, you have a longer shelf on the bottom, which makes this easier to actuate. Your ambidextrous magazine release, ambi safety. You have an oversized magazine release. Magazines all drop free. So we're going to take this apart and show you what it takes take a look at it inside. Again, taking a look at the lower receiver, you can see that it's very well made. Of course, what you expect from Sig. Again, you have a 2-stage trigger on here. Push your button in. stock goes to the side. This is probably the only thing I did not like about it. I preferred the stock that was on the Virtus a lot better, which was telescopic, so you could get a little bit more length out of it. This was a little bit short for me. However, somebody who's carrying this in combat, who's wearing body armor, this shorter stock would probably be a benefit to them being able to use their optics. Now remove the bolt carrier mechanism. Charging handle. This is as far as you're going to go for as far as the upper receiver for your routine maintenance. Now looking at the charging handle, as you can see, we have ambi features, left and right hand side. It's pretty good size. You're going to be able to grab it. Now the bolt carrier group is one of the parts that has gone through some evolution. The first one was not removable. The second one is we have this dog nose that's on here where this is removable. Now, what you have on here, again, this is a short stroke piston. The piston strikes this operating rod. You have your dual recoil springs, and you also have a pinned-in capture device for the rear of your springs. This was done basically because people were assembling this incorrectly. There was a video that came out, I forget who it was, he said the MCX was no good because they came apart in his upper receiver. Well, the reason that they came apart in the upper receiver is because he didn't put it together right. If he didn't have these in their proper positions in this plate, they would come apart, which this is not very difficult to do. You slide your spring forward, you drop it in place, you make sure they're secured. That's all there is to it. So to avoid that from happening, they make it so now you cannot remove your springs. Your bolted bolt carrier group. This has been completely redesigned. You now have a captive frying pan retaining pin. Basically, it comes up on an angle. It's sort of an unusual dimension the way that it is. That drives up like so. And now is where this gets a little bit of a pain in the ass. To remove your firing pin, they've redone their firing pin safety, so now it's internal and it's instead of on top. So basically, your hammer has to come up through here and has to push this inward for the firing pin to be allowed to move. So to remove the firing pin, this gets a little bit more complex here. That drops right out. And now we have our firing pin and firing pin spring. Firing pin spring basically is on here as a safety measure. Again, with certain types of rifles, selective rate can be a little bit higher. I'm not actually sure what the selective rate. I've never fired one of these on selective fire. And I do know in 7.62x39, the firing pin is an issue, which we're going to talk about right now. But the firing pin has to have a different type of a head on it, and it has to be able to strike deeper and strike in more of a distance for it to work properly. And the firing pin spring basically makes it so the firing pin safety can work. As soon as the firing pin is struck, it goes off, and the bolt carrier comes rearward, and the hammer disengages with the back of the firing pin safety snaps into place, and it locks the firing pin in place so it can't move until the hammer comes forward and basically strikes this leaf spring that we have here, push it out of the way so the firing pin's unlocked. Now let's talk about the firing pin. One of the biggest problems that since the AR-15 has been trying to be adapted to 7.62x39 has been the firing pin and having misfires. Those of you who are familiar with AKs and SKSs, you're going to be seeing a picture coming up right now. If you look at the firing pin on an AK or an SKS designed to fire 7.62x39 steel-cased ammunition, the firing pin has a circular shape to it, and it's flat. It has a lot larger of a bearing surface, and it strikes in a little bit longer. That is to make it work well with these very hard Berdan primed cartridge cases. However, when you are to put them in a standard Western type rifle that does not use that, we use hemispherical shaped firing pins here, and we have very different for as far as our specifications for heads for firing pin protrusion. We are finding that vast majority of the time, a standard firing pin, AR-15 firing pin, would not set off a 7.62x39 steel-cased Berdan prime cartridge. Why? Because it didn't go in far enough, and it didn't have enough bearing surface on it to crush it. So basically what you have to do with the firing pin is you have to increase the diameter, and you have to basically flatten the nose so you get the firing pin to hit in deeper and with a larger bearing surface to get that Berdan primer to go off, which is what Sig has done. Sig has modified their firing pin so it goes in deeper and it has a wider bearing surface so it will work. And I'm happy to say with the we've fired about 600 or 700 rounds for this today around that area there. A couple of magazines for it. And it was all Wolf steel cased ammunition, Berdan primed, and I had not one malfunction. I did a video, if you're interested in more on the firing pin issue. It was on the Black Rifle Arms weapon system 7.62x39, and I talk about the difficulties of the firing pin, and I do sort of an explanation in there, and you can see in details of the difference between a firing pin that you would use on 7.62x39 versus 5.56. So any of you guys who like ARs in that caliber, you need to do a bit of research on this so you can see that there are two different firing pins. So you just pull out the cam pin and you pull out your bolt. As you can see, this is proprietary to the Spear Lt, the Virtus, as well as the standard MCX in 7.62x39. You can remove the extractor pin, but there's no need to. But if we also take a look at this face of this bolt, we see dual ejectors on here as well. Again, what that does is it gives you a lot of leeway for as far as suppressed and unsuppressed. We have an increase in cyclic rate. That just helps you get out that cartridge case that much more faster if your system is working a little bit faster. It's certainly a benefit, and you have definitely a very good aggressive claw in here to engage that steel case rims. Reassembly, quite simple. Insert your bolt back into your carrier. You have to make sure your extractor is at 3 o'clock position. Now this one here, you can drop your cam pin right in, basically the holes facing forward. Now, of course, you have to be sure that you have your firing pin retaining pin is in the open position, so you can slide your firing pin into the back. And as you're sliding your firing pin in, you're basically pushing in that firing pin safety, pushing that back in. We're going to have a little bit of a tool that's going to open that up a little bit so we can pop the firing pin in the rest of the way. And now we push our firing pin retaining pin in place. A little bit of persuasion for that one. It gets a little stiff. And now we'll take our carrier. There's a little dog nose on here. We slide that into place. And then that will drop back down. We're going to insert our charging handle. Now we drop in our bolt carrier group. The nice thing about having that firing pin spring on there too is your bolt is always in the unlocked position, so it's a little bit easier for as far as assembly is concerned. Now all SIGs come now with these accu wedges in the back, which it's a black accu wedge here. Earlier SIGs had a spring-loaded plunger in here, which kept your upper and lower receiver tight. They now use a black accu wedge, and as you can see, absolutely there's no play net whatsoever. So I think we're going to go to the range and we're going to see how this shoots. The Spear Lt was developed around the Sea Products Defense Duramag. Duramag is the best magazine on the face of the earth, and it makes this gun combat reliable. The magazine that we're going to be testing here is the D&H Tactical. Now, D&H Tactical I have had a lot of good luck with in the past, so we'll see how it works in the Spear Lt. very hard to see. That target's all, when it was white, now it's all black. As I said, we tested it both suppressed and unsuppressed. The suppressor, again, was the Sig SLX 7.62. And this gun shot very well suppressed and unsuppressed. Accuracy was there. I did not know what to expect because you're looking at somebody who has had a lot of experience with 7.62x39 AR type rifles throughout the years and never had good luck. And it was always magazine, it was always feeding related, and it was also the problems with the ignition of the cartridge due to the type of ammunition it was. You know, if you were to use regular American Eagle 7.62x39, yes, you can go ahead and use a regular AR-15 type firing pin. It's going to go off just fine. It's that steel cased ammunition and that burn-in primer, which causes that problem where you have to have the proper firing pin for it to work. This gun was well thought out for military use. It was designed as a combat rifle, and you'll see all these issues that I had seen in the past. You can see how each one of them was corrected by that team at SIG. Again, the issue with the magazine. They went and they designed a magazine with probably one of the finest magazine manufacturers in the United States. Ciprox Defense probably makes the most durable steel magazines that are out there. They make them for all the different ones. Most of your OEM customers out there, if you were to buy a 6.5 Grendel, you were to buy something that's 6.8 SBC, you're generally going to see a lot of Ciprox Defense magazines because they're trusted. They dealt with the magazine, they dealt with the firing pin, and they dealt with the accuracy. Again, the groups you have with this are just not something that you normally see. You definitely don't see them with AKs. Some of the ARs you can get somewhat better accuracy, but this one just is that much better. I'd love to be able to tell you what the actual problem, what they actually did to it was, but like I said, it probably just wouldn't be. It's just a little too proprietary. But all I can tell you is there's a lot that was done in the inside of the barrel that makes this different from the standard 7.62x39 barrels. I'd like to thank our friends over at Challenge Target for providing us those steel targets. Again, we shot our paper targets, and then we went to steel for both suppressed and unsuppressed. Again, we just love hearing that feedback. You know, at the 100 yards, so you know when you hit that target, punching holes and looking through a scope and everything. Sometimes it's a lot better to shoot those steel targets because, again, if you're practicing for the real world, your target's not going to have a bullseye on it. So shooting those steel targets is good training as well. If you guys are interested in getting some good steel targets, go over to the Challenge Target website, use the code SAS, and you can get 10% off of any steel target on their web page. I hope you do enjoy this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share.